So for our next topic, let's jump into. So we're talking about economics, and now we're talking about first about bringing new teams on board, bringing a new player on board, and when a player gets posted and how that works. Won't get into that, but I just have to say the name, and people get excited. Shohei Ohtani.
Yes.
Shohei Ohtani. So, reading back on our interview back in the day, you indicated that you had pitched a perfect game back when you were a youngster.
Yeah, when I was a little league, yes, I did.
How old were you at the time?
I think I was 12. I was 12 when I threw a perfect game. The Little League Dodgers, Poway National Little League.
Buddy, why were you not still pitching? When did you make this? You pitched a perfect game. It doesn't matter. It's 12 years old. At what point did you give up pitching, and why did you give up pitching?
I did two-way when I was a freshman in college, and then ultimately I think the hitting was where I wanted to focus more of. I didn't want my college team to just think of me as more of a pitcher. I wanted them, because hitting was what I love to do more of. I love to hit home runs. I love to drive the baseball. Pitching was fun, but at the same time, pitching, with your arm, there's so many uncertainties. You never know if your arm's going to blow out at a certain point.
Anytime.
Your arm get tired after a certain game. So really the focus of hitting was something that I was more excited about, especially during my college time.
So imagine then, for you having pitched at a certain point and probably were doing pitching and hitting at the same time and then concentrating on hitting. Imagine then what it's like for Bo Jackson back in the day, Deion Sanders back in the day, to be a two-sport player.
Yeah.
It blows my mind.
I can't even imagine.
And at that level,
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous what some of these guys we're really doing. And I think about, the travel factor, the idea that you have to mentally, not just physically, but mentally change gears and go from one sport to the next. And as well as you think about the time that was put in being able to work on these different aspects within the sport. I think about how hard it is just to find enough time to work on just the things that you want to get better at in baseball, but then you got to do it for two different sports. That's at a whole nother level while trying to stay healthy. Those are so many different factors that you have to think about that come into it when you're a two-sport athlete.
And learning those playbooks, like I've seen what those playbooks look like. And then imagine, you're Bo Jackson and you got to work on your defense. You have to work on your offense in baseball. And then on top of it, you got to learn the whole playbook for the Raiders. And
right.
It blows my mind. So I'm not belittling what Shohei Ohtani does, but, the bar was set when you're a multi-sport player. And then you look at what he's done, and he won in 2021, he won the AL MVP, which I think was well-deserved. And, how do you not say that this man is a modern day Babe Ruth? I marvel at him, and to prepare as a pitcher and be able to be game ready, but then have the mindset of a hitter, learn all the pitchers when you're going to hit, and then, everything else involved, running the bases. How is this man doing what he's doing?
Yeah, I think one thing you look at is to the extent in which he did it last year, especially because he came over from Japan and we expected him to be a two-way player, but we didn't know what caliber. We didn't know if he was going to be a two-way star. We didn't know if he was going to be an average two-way player. And then obviously injuries kind of hurt him along the way to be able to do both. And then last year was absolutely ridiculous, in which we saw him pitch at a high level and hit at a high level, especially when you're talking about the power side of the production. So to see what he was able to do once he kind of put it all together, that's what was most surprising. And like you said, we hadn't seen that since a guy like Babe Ruth. And so he is the modern day, but I don't even think that's comparison enough either, because you look at who he's facing. You look at Shohei Ohtani's not facing guys that Babe Ruth was facing, right? You're talking about guys throwing 100 miles an hour nowadays with 95-mile-an-hour cutters and 92-mile-an-hour sliders. So just to see the type of guys he's facing while doing what he did on the bump, that was extremely impressive for me to see. And I'm interested to see to what capacity will he be able to repeat or be able to do something similar this upcoming season.
I love that logic, and I agree with you 1,000%. When I think of Babe Ruth's days, and you look at the numbers, you had starting pitchers that would be pitching 200 pitches, they'd be in there all pitching complete games. That was the way it was back then. So when he's coming up in the 8th, 9th inning as a hitter, he's facing a guy that's gassed out. Whereas I remember when I wrote about this, and this is way before Tampa did it, and the idea of the opener, and where did I take it from? It was from Cuban baseball, from the World Baseball Classic, which we'll talk about later on. But the idea of your closer, we have two closers, one that's starting the game. So now we're going to call them the opener. I didn't call them an opener, but that's now what the baseball terminology is. So you have your closer at the beginning and you have your closer at the end, and the guys in the middle. And you have your seventh inning specialist, eighth inning specialist, and they're coming in, and guys throwing from the right, guy throwing from the left. This guy throws sinkers, this guy throws curves, and it's so much more challenging as a hitter today than what it was in like 1920, 1930, 1940. It's that level of competition. Plus the number of games you're playing and the demand on your body when you're playing that number of games. I marvel how this man's done it. Sure, he's had his injuries, which is not unrealistic. Like you're saying, coming over from the Japanese game to the North American game, adjusting to that, and then being a two-way guy. I think the guy is doing something like unprecedented that we've literally never seen. So I agree with you there.
Yeah, I think about the adjustment factor coming over from a different country. Just knowing that the adjustment going from the United States over to Asia is its own adjustment factor. So for him to have to come over and still do what he did, adjust to the league, both offensively and as a pitcher, that's something you can't even speak for, because none of us will even know what he's had to go through to get to this point. If you think about Babe Ruth, at least he had the idea that he understood the language. He was already comfortable knowing where he lived, where he was from. This is a player that's come over from a different country now and has dominated our game.
And with Babe, he gave up pitching, obviously, and a lot of people, unless you're a baseball historian, have no clue that the man was ever a pitcher, and became one of the greatest hitters of all time. The debate with Ohtani is where is he going to end up ultimately? He can't do both. Everybody says it, and I think most of us will agree with it. Eventually, he's going to give up one or the other. You're a betting man. Where do you see him going?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to do both for sure. I don't want to. I don't. One thing I know is I don't want to bet against this man. Because of what he's been able to show us, and this is something that he's done for his whole career. So it'll be interesting to see how long, if anything, that I feel like the pitching side will come to an end before the hitting side. But I'm not to say how long that's going to be. That's for sure. I don't want to put any limits on Shohei Ohtani.
Love it. It's just a question of his longevity. The same thing. I don't think it's any different than the debate we would have with catchers. When you have those, you have the Buster Posies, and you're like, okay, this man can't keep doing it because the wear and tear on his knees. We have to move to first base. Got to move to the outfield. You always hear those discussions. So same thing will follow with him. If I was betting, I would say as well he's going to give the pitching side, simply because, like you said, that wear and tear. The other argument, I love that MVP debate of you can't give it to a pitcher because, the hitter is in there every day and the starting pitcher's in there once every 5 days. So you're more valuable as an everyday player versus the every 5 days, except for the fact that we know that pitching is always at a premium. You can never have too much pitching in baseball, no matter what. And a valuable starting pitcher is almost impossible to come by versus having, let's say, an outfielder. So, the juggle is there. I certainly hope that, injuries don't cut him short. I hope we see him have a 20-year career and see him in the Hall of Fame one day. I would love to see him a two-way player. My gut is if he's going to stay as a two-way, I see him more eventually being in the closer/hitter role. So not having him have so much wear and tear on his arm. Tell him we'll bring you out there every couple of days, maybe, so keep you fresh. Just pitch one inning, get us to save, and let's move on. Maybe it'll go that way, but it's gonna be a combination of, it's also this. There's a lot of ego in sports. We're all competitive when we play out there, no matter what level it's at. Even if it's recreational league, and we always want to be the best. And he'll have to determine with his advisors and his doctors and the team which way he's gonna go. But I don't know what we're seeing right now, if we'll ever see that again in our lifetime. So I tell people, you have the opportunity to see this man, pay the money. It's worth it. You'll see something you'll never see again, possibly.
Yeah, just appreciate it. I forget who I was telling. I said, if there's one person that I'm going to pay to go see and watch play a ball game, it's going to be Shohei Ohtani, because he could, hit a 450-foot bomb and also throw 7 complete, shutout innings, striking out 10 to 12 batters. So if I'm going to get my money's worth, it's going to be somebody that's doing it on both sides.
Thank you for enjoying today's episode of the Chosen Life podcast. Go ahead and hit the subscription button below. and the notification bell to catch all of our great shows. And remember to contact the chosen lawyers when you are ready for your next real estate and commercial transaction. Go to kormans.ca.